Hi, this is Rob Price. Today I'd like to talk to you about the Onondaga Central School District 2017 budget development and some updates for February 7th, 2017. We always start our budget development process looking at our strategic goals within this triangle that the board has developed. And we look at student achievement in the top part of the triangle. Bottom right of the triangle, you'll see parent and school and community participation, stable learning environments, all on each side of that around the puzzle pieces that start with the co-curricular at the top, academics, communication, community involvement, security and technology, facilities and transportation, all centered by OCS Pride. The governor's proposal is the first piece that we want to highlight in this presentation, and that's the $2.6 million in state support to schools, a budget-to-budget increase of $961 million, or 3.9% overall increase in spending. You can see broken down in the terms of the formula. Aid is up 761 million, 151 million in fiscal stabilization funds, 335 million in Empire State after school programs, 5 million in early college high schools, 5 million in expended pre-K. New programs only. An existing program would not be able to apply to that. And then a 5 million for other education initiatives, and a foundation aid increase of 428 million, and then proposes using a new figure to calculate poverty. And the current law for expense-driven aids has not changed. Budget development factors that we look at. We have a couple slides here on budget development factors and the allocation of resources. We look at student enrollment trends. This coming school year, we'll be looking at a kindergarten class with an estimated size of 70 students based upon the live birth rate. The live birth rate's been a pretty accurate indicator. We've been coming in on average about 2 to 3 students lower than the live birth rate. There has been years in the past where it would come in right on or 1 or 2 above. But overall, it's been coming in at 2 to 3 students less than the live birth rate. So like this year's kindergarten started out at 67, and then the live birth rate was at 70. State mandates and federal mandates, Individual with Disabilities Education Act for our special education students, English as a second language, English language learners program. We've seen this program in 3 years double in staffing because of the new requirements. Our enrollment hasn't changed significantly, but the requirements under the new federal and state legislation for the number of hours that each student requires to receive during the week has doubled. So that's where you see our staffing has doubled with no additional aid or support for that additional almost position and a half that we've increased. Inflation and allowable levy growth factored to calculate the tax levy is 1.26% for the 2017-18 school year. Our projected tax cap for 17-18 on February 7th right now is really just a quick estimation, and we'll be between 1.5 and about 2% for our tax levy based upon the calculation. Health insurance increases for 17-18 will be about 7%. More than half of the increases for health insurance are contributed to the Affordable Care Act, regulatory fees, and the consortium that we work in is using a large amount of the fund balance to absorb that impact to districts this year. So they're looking at using their fund balance to offset rising costs of the health insurance. Some budget development factors continued. Retirement system rates have decreased slightly for 17-18. We like to keep that budget pretty level from year to year, but we do see the TRS at 9.8%, which is lower than what it was last year at 11.72%, and that's a 16% overall decrease. The ERS rate is 15.8, stayed flat. That's what it was at 15.8 last year. Energy services, natural gas and electricity will remain flat. due to being part of the NISMIC consortium. The contract currently runs through May of 2018, but could realize a slight increase at the year end due to a new contract taking into effect in May of 2018. Health insurance projected to increase, as I mentioned on a previous slide, 7%. Workers' comp increases are unknown, but anticipate an increase due to our experience modifier going up from 1.1 to 1.23 based upon the Code Rule 59 implications and what we have reported. Liability insurance at this time is unknown. The BOCES costs are anticipated to go up somewhere between 0 and 4%, and that's pretty typical of what they've been going up over the past couple of years, is about 2 to 4%. Governor's proposal for OCS. What is that implication? Increase in foundation aid of $93,041 or 1.8%. Expense-driven aids, manual adjustment for transportation, that's done annually. Will receive less building aid due to no building condition survey this year. Increase in material aid saw a slight increase. Just one note on the foundation aid increase. That foundation aid increase does not even begin to meet what our mandated and contractual requirements will be for this budget for 17-18. District building requests, and this is just what our wants and needs are, literally wants and needs. What we're looking at for serious consideration is the network administrator, and you can see what those expenses would look like. We currently have a BOCES person working in that position, but because of changes within the BOCES and the CineRIC program, BOCES will no longer be able to service us on a 5-day-a-week service for a network administrator. So we're looking to add that person as a BOCES employee so we can maintain the continuity of service and maintain our computer infrastructure with the manpower that it desires at this time. And you can see the breakdown of other different pieces. An assistant director of facilities 2 is being considered. But on a priority list, that's a lower priority than of the other positions. Rockwell staff requests, you can see 3 additional teaching positions were requested that total over $225,000. Rockwell office coverage, adding 30 minutes to one of the building secretaries' day at $3,000, just over $3,000. Wheeler office coverage will be at additional 15 minutes, maybe 30, even though it says 15 on the slide. It may be an additional 30. And both of those requests for additional office time is to handle the time needed for processing bus passes and taking care of those secretarial duties and information aid duties at the end of the day, making sure parents and students are communicated with and students are off onto the appropriate bus when transportation requests are changed. The senior high school staff request is 0.25 FTE, which is over $187,000. When we look at the building request for staff, the Rockwell staff, and we'll get this in another presentation, but we're looking at increasing the 0.5 math AIS person to a full-time, which then would result in the special ed position needing to be bumped up to full-time based upon stability and keeping a teacher. And also increasing another teaching position based upon the projected enrollment of the kindergarten being at 70, is adding a 4th kindergarten section. At the junior senior high school, the 2.5 FTE, looking at increasing the adding the 0.5 art position that was reduced years ago, adding that back into the program, adding a school resource officer is calculated into that figure, and also the addition of an English teacher, which was eliminated back when someone had taken another position and moved on from the district. BOCES changes considered for the budget. We have the integration specialist. You can see that's at a 0.2. We're currently at a 0.1, and you see that increase goes from $22,806 to 47,500. So that request, doubles. It goes from 2 days. It goes from 1 day to 2 days, and that's to help with technology integration in the classroom, so that teachers and students are using the computers to meet curriculum standards and 21st learning skills for students beyond high school and being college and career ready. Network support, 1.4 FTE. We're proposing an elimination of that based upon hiring our own network administrator. We may have an additional need for a 0.4 FTE for a land tech support with that position as well. But we're going to be assessing that over the next several weeks during the budget development process. Cloud-based server management program. The base service is going to be $90,000. We're looking into that, and that'll take off some of the work of our network administrator and land tech and place that into the BOCES piece. And was also getting BOCES aid on that. Food service will no longer need the food service support from BOCES, so we're going to take that 57,000 and pull that out, and that's where we're picking up some of the costs to increase the FTE. We're going to keep some of that money in there to cover the increases to the instructional component of the program. Myon is an online reading book subscription that students at Rockwell have been using this year on a trial basis, so we're looking to add that. The volume of books that students have been reading at Rockwell online is very impressive, and we know the more reading students do, the better they're ready to learn, especially when they hit that third grade mark, when now they're not learning to read as much, but they're learning from reading. Science kits, the new science standards are coming out and being implemented. This increase in the science kits is due to the standards in science being changed across the country and the state. And then we'll have some professional development needs coming up, but we're looking at the professional development piece for summer curriculum hours is remaining quite flat from last year, and keeping it right at what we had last year is right around the $45,000 mark for professional development. Funds OCS has lost to the GEA, the gap elimination adjustment. If you remember last year in the budget that we were fully restored with GEA, but when we go back and look at this historically, we go back to 2010, the total state aid loss due to the gap elimination, we're still at $5.4 million. And we don't expect to see that back, but it would be nice. And that's just kind of a running total of what the state took away from schools and what it took away from OCS to balance the budget over the years. The next steps, finalize revenue projections once the state budget is finalized. And we're looking at pieces in the future, and we'll be looking at the Assembly and the Senate's proposed budgets, assess staffing and the enrollment trends, which we talked about a little bit earlier, and finalizing those. Finalize the BOCES services request. We talked about some of that, like not using the food service program anymore because we're with the West Genesee Food Service Program. We're not contracting through BOCES, and we've seen a significant savings this year so far in that. We also have seen our lunch program being very profitable, which helps pay all the bills. Our sales are up, our lunch sales are up. Students seem to be happy with the food service program, and so far this year we're very happy with our partnership with West Genesee Food Service. Determine if the district will continue the use of the plan balance in 2017-18. Determine the tax levy, as I had estimated earlier, we're going to be at a tax levy of somewhere around 1.5% and 2%, and we'll stay within the calculated legislation and law of the tax levy. Determine amount of reserves and appropriated fund balance for the projected budget. How much are we going to use of the fund balance to offset next year's budget? Important dates coming up: February 11th, the budget forum,